Hello and welcome back to Helen Joy Creates. Today we are going to try and make 3 cards with 2 stamp sets and 1 colour. So I'm going to use the little flourish and leave a little sparkle, and then use the flowers as well as some sentiments and the dots from So Much Love. The colour I've chosen is Costal Cabana, which is also the only colour I will use for cardstock along with white. For my first card, I thought I would just stamp on some white background card and then add some more stamps to some Costal Cabana, which I would layer on top. So I start with the largest flower from the So Much Love stamp set, and again, like I said, I'm only using the one colour, so it's all going to just be on that. It's always worth putting some paper underneath what you're going to stamp, not only to save your surface from getting ink all over it, but it also helps with just a little bit of padding as you stamp. As my plan is to add a layer in the middle, I thought I would just stamp around the edge of the white cardstock just to create a type of frame for my final layer that I would add later. If you've watched any of my other videos on my channel, you'll know that stamping is quite a new thing for me, so I'm still learning how to use the stamps and experiment, but that's all part of the fun, having a go and trying different things out and see what you come up with. I just wanted to get a rough idea where my layer would go so that I didn't need to stamp more than I needed on the white cardstock, but just go around the edge without it being covered up too much. I think my ink pad had got maybe a little bit dry, so my second generation stamping wasn't really coming out as boldly as I hoped. So I was finding that I needed to cover much more just with that first layer of ink. Then I took the slightly smaller flower from the set to stamp onto my Costal Cabana cardstock, which I was going to layer up on top of the white. I really like the design of those buds and leaves on the edge of this stamp, and in some ways wish that I had a spare extra little stamp just with those on, just to add some more detail. Used just a bit of scrap of paper torn up to help mask my print so that I could layer another flower on top. And at this point I did quite like it, but then having added this third flower, as you'll see, it didn't print very well, and the masking as well just took up too much of the space. It masked it too much, so I wasn't happy with how that looked, so thought I would just cut out the section that I wasn't happy with and just add it as a, not as a straight edge layer, but just with the shape of the stamp. I ended up cutting out a lot more than I had been planning, just because I thought it looked better not having any straight edges, but allowing the foliage to give me the shape. So then I decided in that space that I had at the top, instead of adding more of the roses, I would add a sentiment there. Then just to pop out my layer, I stuck some dimensional sticky pads onto them so that it would lift it up a little bit from the white cardstock. However, as I was doing that, I noticed some gaps on the white card that I wasn't happy with and wanted to fill in the space. So once I'd finished putting the dimensionals on my layer, I didn't actually stick it on straight away, but added a little bit more stamping to fill in the gaps that I didn't like, and before sticking the layer on. So I used that flourish from Lever's Little Sparkle just to add a little more detail and fun to the design. The great thing about having these clear blocks for your stamps is that you can see your whole design through it, so you can just move it around and play around and just get an idea of how you think it's going to look before you commit to actually stamping it down. I just found that so useful, to be able to figure out where I wanted to put my stamp down. Finally happy, I then stuck my layer on, and that's my first design done. So as I said in this video, I was trying to do 3 designs with 2 stamp sets and 1 colour. For the second design, I thought I would just keep it on white cardstock, not do any layering. And again, just using those roses from the Much Love stamp set, I thought I would do some stamping on the top and the bottom, leaving a sort of middle section to add a sentiment on. And as I had seen with my previous card, that the second generation stamping just wasn't really giving enough depth, I decided on this one that I would just do first generation stamping. Again, using just scrap bits of paper to do a little bit of masking so that I could layer stamps on top without it overlapping too much. Then on to do the top of the card. So as you can see on the bottom half that I just did, I stamped 3 flowers. So on the top I wanted to arrange the flowers in a design that would be in alternate positions to those, so in a kind of every other space placing, so that it didn't just look like a reflection of the design on the bottom. Next, I used a little splatter stamp to dot around the place just to add a little bit of interest to the design and fill in any obvious gaps, as well as just spread the design out a little bit more. Again, I was pretty happy with this, but just wanted to add that flourish just to give it that little bit more elegance to the design. then just to finish off, to put a sentiment in the centre. So this Believe stamp is from the Leave a Little Sparkle stamp set. So there we have our second card. For the third and final design, I decided I would try and stamp straight onto coloured cardstock. So again, like I said, this is Costal Cabana, so Costal Cabana cardstock with Costal Cabana ink. And again, just those same two stamp sets that I'm going to use to do this one as well. I decided I would just go for a very simple central design on this one. So use the slightly smaller sized rose from the So Much Love stamp set. And also the Flourish from Leave a Little Sparkle, just to add a little bit more of that elegant detail around the edge. And again, just using my scrap bit of paper for a bit of masking. And again, just to fill in just a bit of extra interest, just a few of these splatters around the edge. I decided I was just going to keep this pretty simple and just leave it like that and not worry about putting a sentiment on, but maybe adding one at a later time. So there's my attempt at making 3 cards with 2 stamp sets and 1 colour. Thank you so much for watching, and please do remember to give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed watching it. I aim to do Making Monday art and craft videos and Foodie Friday videos too, so hopefully see you again soon.